Senator McCarthy.
Through the Chair, thank you. Hello, Mr Harfield, how are you doing? Recent publicity as a result of testing a number of firefighting training grounds, defence bases and aviation firefighting services have proven that there is a widespread contamination of the grounds surrounding farms and land and waterways due to the use of PFOA fighting foams. In 2013, Airservices commissioned independent testing on foams currently in use. Did you receive a comprehensive test from a reputable testing facility showing the Solberg RF6 ARFFS primary firefighting agent failed to meet the requirements of ICAOB foam testing as required under the regulations?
Senator Jason Harfield, Chief Executive Officer. That's not my understanding.
What's your understanding?
Understanding is that we received a test on the RF6 foam that met the requirements that we need to have the foam from a CASA standard point of view, and that's one of the reasons why we introduced the RF6 foam into service. And
where is the RF6 being used?
The RF6 foam is being used at all the locations where we provide aviation rescue and firefighting services, except for Darwin and Townsville.
Okay, so how many of the other services?
24 different locations.
24 locations, and why isn't it being used in Darwin and Townsville?
We provide the services on behalf of the Department of Defence, and their requirement is to use the Ancholite foam.
And what protection do they have while they're currently using still the PFAS?
The firefighters. The firefighters have PPE, personal protection equipment, which they use, and plus there is handling requirements for the foam.
So what does PPE do?
The PPE is the gear that they wear, the personal protection equipment.
And what guarantee is there that they will not experience issues with PFAS given that they're still using it?
Senator, we have a range of controls program in place where we make sure we monitor our work health and safety requirements.
But can you guarantee?
Which are there that continually monitor and to ensure minimising the exposure to the foam, and we can provide on notice what those protocols are.
You can't tell me?
I can't tell you off the top of my head exactly what those protocols are.
So how many firefighters are we talking about in Darwin and Townsville?
I'll have to take it on notice, but for both of those being 24-hour locations, I would say in the vicinity of probably 80, but we'll take that on notice to give you the exact number at both locations.
So how much longer will Darwin and Townsville firefighters have to use this foam?
Senator, we're in a process in negotiation with the Department of Defence to transitioning away from the Ancholite foam towards doing a trial with the RF6 Solberg foam. One of the requirements that needs to be a trial is that while the RF6 is suitable for civil standards and for civil purposes, the Ancholite foam has been tested for the military standard because there's sort of different types of fires that can occur with military aircraft.
But Mr Harfield, I asked you how much longer will they have to use it?
We are going through a process with the Department of Defence to conduct a trial, and the outcome of that trial and then the transition I'm not sure of.
There is no time frame put on this
Not
at
that
all?
I'm aware of, but that would be a question you could have for the Department of Defence.
What are the firefighters being told?
I'm unsure that we were doing, other than that we are conducting a trial with the Department of Defence at some stage to transition away from the foam.
And what does that trial involve?
Would be ensuring that the RF6 foam meets the military requirements for their particular the situation of extinguishing the type of fires that can get with military aircraft and military weaponry.
But in terms of Airservices giving a guarantee to your employees, you're not able to do that?
What I can guarantee, Senator, is that we continually monitor the health and safety of our firefighters. We have a program in place since we discovered and aware of the PFAS in the early 2000s and transitioned away to the Angelite foam in about 2004 under the understanding that we didn't have a PFAS, didn't contain PFAS. However, with testing found that there were trace elements of PFAS, and in 2010 moved away to the Solberg foam. During that time, we've conducted, under our work health and safety obligations, a program to monitor our employees, and we continue working with the Commonwealth Department of Health to ensure that we continue to monitor the firefighters and do what we can.
Are you taking their blood test? Is that part of your monitoring? Do they get
At this
tested?
particular stage, no. We were the first firefighting service to actually conduct voluntary blood tests in 2013.
But what about the firefighters in Darwin and Townsville? Are
They were
being
actually
blood
involved
tested?
in that testing as well at that
And
particular stage.
Is there ongoing testing for them now?
So what we have did after that testing, and as the results, we've taken the advice of the Commonwealth Department of Health, which can I just read you a quote from their current advice, is individual blood testing for PFAS is not currently helpful to manage any current or medical problems or to predict future health problems. All Australians are expected to have some amount of PFAS in their blood due to the wide range of things it has been used for. A broad range of levels would be expected in all communities due to background exposure. There is no level of PFAS that is considered normal or abnormal. As a result of that, our monitoring of firefighters has taken a different course. However, we're still currently working with the Commonwealth Department of Health and other agencies to ensure that our existing controls remain effective, and that is continuing to explore the benefits of doing blood testing going forward at the right time. But it's the fact that after we did the 2013 testing, the issue that there's no particular standard and you don't know whether if you've got, say,
But
X,
Mr. Harfield,
and so we continue to monitoring it. Sorry.
That quote that you've read to the committee from the health department, is that in a letter to you or is that in a public website?
That's their public advice.
Okay, so they're saying it's not helpful to have blood testing.
At this particular stage, yes.
All right, so in terms of the Darwin community, what conversations has Airservices had with the residents and organisations around Darwin Airport and Townsville airports?
That would be a matter for the Department of Defence because they're the owner of the airfield. We're doing the firefighting under contract to Defence.
So you don't have any communication strategy whatsoever around that?
We've got communication strategy and work around our other locations. I'd have to just take it on notice what we specifically have for Darwin and Townsville.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Harfield, I just want to clarify something. When you spoke about the PPE for Darwin and Townsville firefighters, are they wearing them now?
Senator, I'll just tell you honest, there was a change out in the PPE because the PPE that we were using was causing heat stress, and particularly a place like Darwin and Townsville.
And when was that taking place?
That was the PPE we've had in the last few years, but my understanding is, and I'll take it on notice.
Wasn't there a new lot to roll out?
Sorry?
Wasn't there going to be a new rollout?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is that I need to take that on notice on the exact timing of the rollout, but there is a rollout currently going on in changing out the PPE across the country.
But Darwin and Townsville weren't on that list, were they?
They were down the end of the list, and I can't recall the exact reason why that they were placed at the bottom of the list.
Would you like to take the question on notice?
I'm going to take the notice on notice and we'll provide you that reason.
So what are the firefighters wearing now in Darwin and Townsville if it's not the PPE that you were saying earlier?
If it's not the new PPE, then they've got the current or the previous PPE.
But you can't confirm that?
Right this moment in time, I could confirm it if I can call somebody, but I don't know off the top of my head right now.
So you'll take that question on notice?
Correct.
As to what PPE they're wearing?
Yep.
Just to clarify, is there a national management plan with Airservices on how to deal with it?
Sorry, say that last bit again.
A national management plan around dealing with PFAS?
Yeah, we have a national plan where we're going through preliminary site testing at all our locations, and they are underway. We just released last week the results for Gold Coast for some off-airport testing, and we continue to work with the Prime Minister and Cabinet PFAS Task Force for the whole of government approach, as well as mentioned before, continuing to review our work health and safety controls to ensure that they're as effective as possible.
So that's working on the 24 airports other than Darwin and Townsville?
It's actually less than
testing?
that, because it will be 20... so it'd be 20 airports or 21 airports, because at Ballina, Coffs Harbour, Gladstone and Newman, we've never used any PFAS-related foam because they were established after 2010. So there's no PFAS contamination there from the use of firefighting foams.
Okay, so in Darwin and in Townsville, if they were to use the foam today, are you aware of just how much foam has been used since 2010?
I have to take that on notice on the time that we've discharged foam.
Okay, could you take on notice how much of the PFAS, or what incidents was PFAS, the foam, used at Darwin Airport since 2010? Yep. And in particular this year, in 2017, how many times has the PFAS foam been used by the firefighters? PFAS-related foam, so the angelite foam, during 2017. And since 2010?
And since 2010.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, just a couple of quick ones on this PFAS, Mr. Hartfield, and it might have been, I was out the room doing something important in WA, but what are the health risks to firefighters who are exposed to this stuff?
To be honest with you, I don't want to be quoted, I'm not a health expert, so we take our advice from the Commonwealth Department of Health and other experts, and their current position is, and I quote from one of their statements, in humans there's no consistent evidence that PFAS cause any specific illness, including cancer. However, the science and all that is evolving over time, and as mentioned before, we did some original blood testing in 2013. Although it was a voluntary testing and about 20% of the firefighters took up that testing. However, we're currently reviewing our work health and safety controls around PFAS because the other piece of advice that came from the Commonwealth Department of Health, as I mentioned before, I quoted it, but in summarising, a broad range of levels could be expected in all communities due to background exposure. In other words, everyone's got PFAS in them because of the wide range, and there is no level of PFAS that is considered normal or abnormal. So the recommendation was that blood testing doesn't help at this particular stage.
What do you mean everyone's got PFAS in them?
Because PFAS has been, it's in Teflon, so you Scotch Guard, it's in certain packaging, it's been around and quite ubiquitous, and so therefore there's a level of background across, and everyone's expected to have a level in them. So,
but there is science in the United States, or at least there are studies in the United States that indicate there are emerging health risks.
Correct, and that's why it's continuing to monitor and doing what's the most effective.
Those emerging health risks have been deemed to be, significant enough that no one uses it anymore. Even yourselves, you don't use it anymore.
Sorry?
Well, no one uses it anymore because there's emerging health risks.
Correct, but we can only take our advice from the experts, and we're doing what we can based on their advice.
The only one that uses it is defence. That's your evidence tonight. What are other defence forces? What are the United States? Do they still use it?
That's my understanding.
So the health department says we've all got it. There's no way of measuring it. It's not guaranteed it's going to create any dramas. This is the health department. I'm not trying to set you up for the gotcha because I don't have a gotcha. But we've all shit ourselves and we're running away from it.
The issue that we've been trying to deal with that is that how do you manage this situation where the science hasn't caught up and trying to manage it in a proactive way without actually setting precedents that we're not quite aware of. And so just trying to be as diligent as we possibly can with the science and what evidence is around.
So I suppose it gets to the stage now that if the workers, the firefighters start developing symptoms that Senator Gallagher talked about in America, where does that put air services?
Where does it put everyone? We're doing everything we possibly can to mitigate the risk.
No, I understand that, Mr.
And as things occur that we just have to take, and we're monitoring the situation all the time and taking advice and continuing to review our protocols and monitoring.
Litigation.
Sorry, Senator?
It'll be up there with the breast implant litigation.
No, it'll be more serious than that. Are you aware of the defence official who stood up before a public meeting and said, this is the new asbestos?
Senator, I've heard that statement from the Four Corners.
This is the new asbestos. That's what was said. So you can imagine why communities at Oakey and Williamtown and Tyndall are very worried about this. And I accept all of what you've said about the health advice, because I've heard it all in another inquiry. But, it's a bit like the Australian design rules. It takes 12 years to prove something. And if it takes us 12 years to prove that PFAS or PFAS was bad for us, it won't be this, maybe with the exception of Senator McCarthy, it won't be this committee that's talking about it.
We're suggesting that she's younger than us.
Longevity might be a long seat.
So in terms of Tyndall Airport, Air Services does not have any relationship with the firefighters
Not at
there?
all, so
Okay.